If you're like me, then you get a ton of emails, you hate reading them, and you especially hate replying. If that's the case, having an AI that can automatically respond to emails and manage your inbox is probably a pretty appealing proposition. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how we can make that. An AI that can manage your inbox. Now, this AI can do super simple things like summarize emails for you, send you maybe a bulk email at the end of the week with the important ones you need to reply to, or it could simply respond to specific emails. It could delete emails, it could send emails on your behalf, it can do practically anything. And in this video, I'll show you how you get the setup done, and then you can go and adjust this and make it as cool as you want. Now, for this project specifically, what we'll do is we'll connect to Gmail, we'll authorize ourselves, and then we'll read new emails every day, every 2 days, whatever increment you want. Whenever we get a new email, we'll take that content, pass that to ChatGPT. ChatGPT will then generate a response for us, and then we'll send the email on our behalf. Now, you can obviously filter the emails. You could also maybe generate a draft instead of actually sending it. A bunch of customizations you can make, but I'll keep it pretty simple here and allow you guys to adjust it as we go. Now, to do all of this, I'm going to use a platform called MindsDB. Now, you can click the link in the description and create a completely free account. You do not need to pay for this. I've teamed up with them for this video and they've sponsored it, but I've worked with them on some other videos in the past and you guys seem to really enjoy the platform. Just to give you a quick bit of information on what this platform is, essentially, this platform allows you to write SQL-like queries to generate AI models. So what we can actually do is write an entire AI machine learning model based on OpenAI and ChatGPT in just a few lines of SQL-like syntax. Now, you can hook this up with a bunch of different data sources. So in our case, the data source is going to be our email inbox. But in previous videos, I did something like Twitter. We could do something like Slack messages. We could connect this to MongoDB or Postgres, and you can write all kinds of different AI models in this SQL-like syntax. So here, chatbots, classification, forecasting, recommendation engine, real-time research and development. And you can see that this is kind of the syntax, right? Create chatbot, this using whatever the information is here. Right, let's go and see if they have another one here. Create a job. A job is something that will run recurringly. You guys will get the hang of it. Really, really cool. And if you know anything about SQL, this makes it super powerful to actually work with your data and really quickly create machine learning models based on it without having to really know a lot about the implementation details, hence why we're going to use it here. Anyways, let's make a new account. Let's hop into kind of the cloud editor here for MindsDB, and I'll show you step by step what we need to do to make this AI that can manage our inbox. All right, so once you've made your free account, then you should be brought to a page that looks like this, which is the MindsDB Cloud Editor. Now, to give you a bit of information on how all of this works, you can write all of the code that you need and generate all of the machine learning models and all that kind of stuff directly from the web. You don't need to set anything up locally. However, if you do have a model that you want to be using in production, then what you're able to do is actually connect to the MindsDB host from something like Python, JavaScript, whatever it is, and you can then ping the API, or you can ping the machine learning model, sorry, and it will return to you whatever data you want. Now, I'll put a video on the screen that kind of shows you how to do that. This is another video on the channel that uses MindsDB. For now, though, we actually won't need to leave this window. Everything can be done here and directly automate the inbox. All right. So how do we get started? Well, the first thing with MindsDB is we need to add a data source. So you can go here and click on new data source. You also could upload a file or a machine learning model, and you can go through here and kind of select one of the, I think like over 130 data sources that they currently support. So pretty much any place you could imagine you can connect to. In our case, we want to connect to Gmail. So I'm actually not going to use this graphical editor. Instead, we're going to write some syntax that will connect to our Gmail account. Now, in order to connect to the Gmail account, we actually need to generate something known as an app password. Now, this isn't the most secure way in the world to do this, so be careful if you're going to be running production applications with this. However, to generate an app password, we're going to go to our Gmail account. So you can go to myaccount.google.com. That'll bring up whatever Gmail account you're currently signed into. Now, obviously, you can change your account from the top right-hand corner or just by signing in, signing out, etc. But I don't want to leak my accounts, so I won't do that. And what we can do is simply search app password like this in the top bar here and click on app passwords, which will be under the security pane. Now I need to sign in, so let me sign in and then I'll show you how we generate the password. All right, so once you're brought to this page, then what you're able to do is click on select app, choose what you want. In our case, it's going to be mail, right? Because we're generating this for Gmail. And then you're going to pick a device. You can just pick other. It doesn't actually matter the device that you pick. And then you can give this a name. So something like server 2, whatever you want to name it, right? API, Gmail, etc. What will happen is you'll generate the app password, and then you need to copy it directly because you won't be able to see it again. Now, I already have one, so I'm not going to do this. But what you guys will do, generate that app password. Once that app password is generated, then we are good to go, and we can go back to MindsDB. All right, so to create the integration or the connection with our emails, what we need to do is create a data source. Now, I'm going to copy in some syntax here just to save us a little bit of time. Feel free to pause the video here and type this out. So what we have here is create database, and then the name of the database, which in this case will be the email data source. Just keep it that name. It'll be easier as you follow along. With engine equal to email, and then we pass in the parameters, which are equal to some curly braces, and then we pass our email and the app password for the email that we just generated. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. Obviously, I'll blur out my information here, and then it will create a new data source for us. This takes a second. And once that data source is generated, we can start running normal SQL queries to view the information in that data source. So this data source will contain a bunch of our different emails, and we can query them, however we would normally query a database. So what I can actually do here is write a select query and say select asterisk from, and then this is going to be the email underscore data source dot emails like that. When I run this, we should see that we get a bunch of emails appearing kind of in this bottom terminal tab that I'm pulling up on the screen. And we should see all of the different columns and information in it. Now, I'm hopefully not going to leak too much information when I do this, but let's give it a second to run, and then I'll show you the result. All right, so that query has finished running, and you can see that it's giving me a bunch of different columns, right? ID, created at, to, from, subject, body, etc. Now, some of you may be saying, okay, well, that's useful, but I would want to use this in an app. Again, you can actually connect to this from code. There's all kinds of tutorials from MindsDB. Regardless, you see that we're getting some emails. I don't really want to leak too much information, but I think this is fine. If you guys see, monetization opportunity, you can imagine the emails that I get. And regardless, now that we know how to select from there, I'll just show you one more query that will select based on, say, a specific subject or something. And then we can actually move on to looking at how to send emails and how to generate replies to specific emails. So let me copy in another query here just to save us a bit of time. So what I'm doing here is I'm selecting ID to subject body from email data source.emails, where the subject is equal to something specific. I'm ordering it by the ID, and then I'm limiting it to 5. Now, this is just an example of a more compound query you can run that's going to have some more filters and checks. In this case, we're checking the subject. We can check the to field. We can check the from field. There's a bunch of fields we can check, right? So anyways, that's one. I'm not going to run this. Just wanted to show you that that's another query you could use. So now that we've done that, let me show you quickly how we would send an email from something like MindsDB. Then once we know how to read our emails and send emails, we can combine those two together with that ChatGPT integration, which will allow us to generate the replies and then actually send them to specific emails. All right, so to send an email, we're going to write the following query: insert into email data source dot emails to subject body. Now, what we're putting here is the different parameters that we're going to have. So in this case, the to field is going to be this, the subject is going to be this, the body of the email is this, right? And then we have the values. So we would put the email we want to send to, the subject, and then we put the body. Now, I will change this to an email that I have access to that I can leak. In fact, we can just send this to the email that is available at my YouTube description, so that it's not one that I'm leaking. techwithtim@viralnationtalent.com. Don't email me. You will get a reply from ChatGPT. Just kidding. Anyways, what I can do is run this here, and I'll show you in a second when I go to my email that this will be generated, right? So we'll have this. So let's go down here and see. It says query successfully completed. So I'll show you that new kind of unread or just sent email, and then we'll move on. All right, so as you guys can see here, the email was received and it says hello from MindsDB, just sent 0 minutes ago. Okay, so that is working. So now at this point, we know how to read and send emails, and we now need to start generating some replies, which is going to involve using an AI table. Now, AI tables are the implementation of machine learning models in MindsDB. They're very interesting because we can use SQL syntax to query the AI model. So it seems a bit strange, I know, but it's actually really useful and super easy to work with because we can combine different queries with our data sources and take information from one row or from one table and pass that into the AI table, which will then generate a reply or a response for us in a new row or a new column, depending on how we set it up. You'll see what I mean. I know that was probably a bit confusing, but what we're going to do is start creating a model. So again, I'm just going to copy in this syntax. I know I'm copying a lot of stuff here, but it's going to be faster than me typing all of it out and potentially making a mistake. So what we do to create a new model is we say create model, and then we say MindsDB dot the name of the model. In this case, I'm naming it sponsorship reply. Now, what I want to do is predict some field. So I'm saying I'm predicting a response, okay? So this is the field that we will use when we actually want to get a response and, use that as a reply to the email. Okay, so create model, MindsDB does sponsorship reply. We're essentially just naming the output column here, which in this case is response. And we're saying we're going to use a specific engine. Now, there's all kinds of different engines we can use here in MindsDB. They have classification, regression. They probably have better ones for this use case, but I love using ChatGPT and OpenAI, so that's the one that I went with. So I said using engine equal to OpenAI, max tokens is 300, and then we need to pass the OpenAI API key. I'll show you how we get that in 1 second. So we pass the API key, we pass the model name. This is the most recent one as of filming this video. And then this is the most important part here that you'll adjust, which is the prompt template. Now, the prompt template is what we are essentially using as our AI model or our machine learning prompt. So the way that I always use ChatGPT is I'll just come up with a good prompt that contains some variable data. In this case, that variable data is the body of the email, and it will then kind of do what I say as like a mock machine learning model. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but if I read this to you, you'll see what I mean. So first, determine if the following email is related to sponsorships. If it is, reply to the following email in a personalized, polite, and professional manner. Make sure to include my sponsorship rates and explain what each one is. Obviously, these are fake, but an insert, maximum 60-second integration into a video costs $10, and a dedicated YouTube video costs $50. If it is not related to sponsorships, return the exact string of no reply. Here is the email, and then this is the email right here, which is the body of the email, okay? So I'm asking ChatGPT to first tell me, okay, is this related to sponsorships? If it is, give me the reply, and then we'll generate the reply and send that to the person, okay? So now that we have that, what we'll need to do is generate this API key. And obviously, you guys will write this prompt template based on what you want to occur for ChatGPT, right? Or for the AI model. So if you wanted to talk about, why they should come visit your storefront, or you wanted to just reply to people and tell them to call your phone number, or whatever you wanted to do, that's what you would put in the prompt template, right? You specify what kind of reply you want. In my case, I've specified this is the reply, and it will make it personalized based on the person that sent the email. Okay, so how do we get this API key? Well, let me go to the OpenAI website and I will show you. All right, so what we need to do to get our OpenAI API key is we first need to have an account with OpenAI. I assume most of you probably already do if you're using ChatGPT. And then we're going to go to platform.openai.com. Okay, I'll leave this link in the description. From here, we'll click on the settings. We'll go to view API keys. And then what we can do is generate a new key. Now you can see I already have a key. Obviously, I will delete this after the video so that you guys don't steal it. But you click create secret key, give it a name, and then it will generate a key for you, which you can copy and use wherever you would like, okay? So that's it. That's how you get the API key. You also can just go directly to this link, platform.openai.com/account/API keys. Okay, now we have our API key. We paste that inside of here, and we can just go ahead and run this, and it's going to start generating a model for us. Once the model is generated, I'll show you how we use it with this SQL query, which is quite useful. So after a few seconds here, this model should be finished. You can actually check if it's done by going to MindsDB over here, models, and you can see sponsorship replies here. There's also a query that you can use for that, but I'm not going to show that to you right now. Anyways, the model is finished. And the way we use this is we just query it like a normal SQL table. Now, this will seem a bit weird, but I'm just going to paste in a query here and explain this to you. So I'm saying select body response from MindsDB.sponsorshipReply, which is the name of the model we just made, right? Where body is equal to, and then we specify in here the body that we wanted to generate a reply for. Now that's because remember, when we generated the model, inside of those double curly braces, which represents a variable, this is the prompt template, we named it body, right? So if I go back here, you can see that we have body. So if we had two variables like body and then we had subject, then we would pass multiple where clauses. So let me paste this back in. We'd say where body equals to that, and subject is equal to this, right? So you would pass multiple variables. In this case, we're just passing one variable. Okay, So select body response from MindsDB.sponsorship reply, where the body is equal to this. Response will be that output column, and it will run that ChatGPT kind of prompt on this and then give us whatever the response from ChatGPT was. So let's run this here and give this a second, and let's see what it actually says for the reply. All right, so we have the body here. All right, and then if we go over here to response, we can see that it says, I'm pleased to provide you with our sponsorship rates. And then it kind of says all of this here. Dedicated video. Please note these rates are subject to change. If you have any specific requirements, blah, blah, blah. Best regards. And then we could have put this in the template, right? To say, you know, reply as Tim Rasika from this company, blah, blah, blah. And we can fine tune that template as much as we want and kind of keep remaking the model. All right. So anyways, that is how that works. So we now are able to generate a reply. Now, the interesting part comes when we start hooking this up with our email data source. What we can do now is we can actually query our email data source, and then we can combine that with a query to our sponsorship reply. So it's like joining a table in SQL, right? That's what we can do. And then we can keep generating that response column output so that we can see what the replies would be for the emails we actually have in our inbox. So I'm going to paste in a pretty complex query here, but this will do exactly what I just described, where again, we're kind of combining the AI table, which is really what it's called, with our data source, and then generating a column or an output for every single piece of our data source with that AI table. All right, so I've just pasted in the query here. Let's kind of run through it. So select asterisk from, and then we have an inner or kind of compound query in here where we're saying select e.body as body, r.response as reply, and then e.subject from email data source dot emails as e, join MindsDB.sponsorship reply as R. So again, if you're familiar with query or with SQL, sorry, not with query, what we're doing is joining the tables together, where now what will happen is the AI table will generate a reply column for every single body entry that it has here. Then we'll say where e.subject is equal to this. The reason I put this here is I only want to generate a reply for one specific email. This is just for the video, but for you guys, you could remove this, right? You can keep this order by, and then you can limit it to say 10 just so it doesn't take forever to run. So that's the query. All we have to do really is just join a data source with the AI table. It might take a little bit of experimenting to come up with the correct query, and then you'll see that it will generate replies for all of the emails that are in our data source. So let me go ahead and run this. We'll give it a second to complete, and then I will show you the result. All right, so I just changed the query a little bit to get it to work because for some reason it wasn't finding that other email subject. It's possible I deleted that email. Regardless, we have this here, which is an email I get a lot actually. And anyways, you can see that it has the body. And then if we go over here, it has the reply. Now, I won't go through the whole reply because it does actually leak the person's name, so I don't want to put that in the video, but you can see it gives us that reply column, which was generated by the AI table. So that's exactly how you would do this in terms of mixing the two tables together. Obviously, you can write more complex SQL queries, and you can filter this better so you're only replying to specific emails, like it's a certain sender, it's a certain body, text is contained in here, whatever you want to do that's valid SQL syntax. So now at this point, we know how to actually generate this query. The last thing we need to do is make it so that we do all of this, but then we actually send an email. So that would be one additional step where now we're combining this with that send email syntax. So we generate the reply and then we actually send that reply to the person. Now we want to do this on some kind of increment, right? Every hour, every 2 hours, every day. So we're going to use something in MindsDB called jobs. Now jobs are just like cron jobs pretty much, where they'll run whatever increment you set them at. And it's super useful because we don't need to set up a server or handle anything ourselves. MindsDB can just take care of it for us. So again, I'm going to paste in another large piece of syntax. By the way, I'll try to keep all of this kind of in the description below so that you guys can copy it in. All right, so this is the code here. We're going to write create job, mindsdb.email reply. That's the name of the job, as, and then we put the query inside of here that we actually want to run. So what we're doing is inserting into the email data source .emails the to subject body. Now what that's going to do is take to, so who we're sending it to, the subject of the email, and then the content, and add that in. And then we're selecting e.to, e.subject, and s.response as the body. So now you can see we're saying from email data source .emails e. That means we're labeling this as e, where we're getting the to and the subject from. We're then joining that to the AI table, MindsDB.sponsorship reply, labeling that as S, and getting the response for every single email that matches this query here. We're then going to insert the reply into the email data source, so we'll actually send that email. Now, what I'm doing here is just having a where clause. I say where e.subject is equal to the following, just so we only reply to that email, and then we're limiting this to 10. Now, obviously, you could remove these if you want, and then you'd be replying to every single email. Anyways, we'll put those back here, and that is pretty much it. We're then doing the time increment, and we're saying we're going to run this job every single day. For this specific job, the minimum increment is day, so you can't do something like hour. You can actually only do day. I tested this out previously, and that's the one that works in terms of the minimum increment. Okay. So that is all the code. Again, this will be available from the link in the description. If you wanted to test this out, by the way, before you actually start sending emails to random people, you could go here to the to field and you could just fill in your email. Now, actually, we need single quotes here, but you could do something like tim@techwithtim.net, and then you'd be able to test and see if all these replies are good. Maybe you want to forward the replies, whatever you want to do, but this is a way that you could actually test it out. Now, I'm not going to run this job because I've already tested it. It's working, and well, I don't want it running right now, but obviously you would just run the query. It would go ahead and create this job. And now I'll show you actually how you would delete the job. What you can do is you can write drop job. And if you write drop job, that's going to delete it. So if for some reason you want to get rid of it once you make it, you can just do drop job, and then you are good to go. All right. So I think with that said, that's going to wrap up this video. I know there was a bit of complexity here. There's a bunch of queries, stuff you're going to have to copy in. Obviously, it's just not that easy to make an AI that manages your inbox. However, with MindsDB, we could do this relatively fast compared to if we had to code this on our own. And I will try to leave all of the syntax that I mentioned in this video in the description down below. I hope I have enough space there so you guys can just copy it directly from there rather than having to type everything in. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Again, check out MindsDB from the link in the description. Thanks to them for sponsoring this video, and I look forward to seeing you in another one.